Pria Chetty from South Africa, and I work at PricewaterhouseCoopers. I think we've all recognized the importance of innovation, especially from a science and R&D perspective. We see innovation as being a catalyst to improving the way that we do things, creating better efficiencies, perhaps creating better quality products. And the idea of open innovation is almost innovating at the innovation level. It's speaking about how to create new ways to innovate. So it's innovation for the innovation process. Those open ways could be the way that we gain the knowledge that we need to bring about the efficiencies. Who do we speak to? Who are we traditionally speaking to? And could we speak to other people to get even better insights as to what we could be doing? Could we be partnering with different people that we previously didn't partner with? In the way that we're commercializing and distributing things, could we have a more open approach of sharing and collaborating? And so it's about asking the questions as to how a more open way of innovating could produce better impact for the things that we want to change. Intellectual property is founded on the closed principle. So the way that it's currently structured rather is linked to the closed principle, which means that if I create it, then I'm exclusively entitled to exploit it. And I think that there's definitely a lot to show, or a lot to evidence that in fact the value of something can only be extracted when it's shared. And so intellectual property laws will need to be amended to allow people to have sharing for specific benefit. And so it's not to do away with the intellectual property laws per se, but to actually recognize that, there could be a cause like finding the cure to HIV/AIDS that requires people to collaborate. And the purpose itself should inform us that intellectual property should not be as stringent in that case.
How do we get there from where we are?
I think that there's got to be a mind shift in policymakers and regulators who tend to associate value of production and of science with the number of patents that someone has, or the amount of registrations that they have of intellectual property. Perhaps changing those indicators to show how effectively is this being used and applied in the real world. So if we could introduce that kind of mindset shift, we could perhaps look for ways in which we could extract better value from the things that we are producing.
How do you introduce that?
Yeah. Well, it is to actually, one, engage people who are involved in science and research to try and make the outputs more available and create methods of sharing it, to identify, what could the benefits be? Because there are benefits that we can anticipate, like perhaps another R&D project benefits from the outputs of a previous one. But there could be benefits that we don't anticipate. So we need the research community to try and share and understand what the benefits could be, to even study the benefits of a more open approach to distribution of the output, and then translate that knowledge to policymakers to show, you can produce this kind of socioeconomic impact, or you could produce this kind of economic impact, purely economic impact, if you had a more open approach. I think the idea with open innovation is that you could actually decrease your costs. So whereas an R&D project could last 5 years and involve 5 researchers over that period, what if there was an open call to anyone out there to produce the particular R&D outcome that you're looking for? And what if it took 30 days to produce the answer and it only cost you $20,000 as opposed to $2 million? So there is an element in which open innovation could decrease costs. And so we also speak about open innovation as impacting the economics of an innovation, which is typically how much does it cost us to actually innovate in this way and produce this change. Open innovation could decrease those costs. I think the one thing that we have to acknowledge is that there's this big driver for us, which is technology. It's allowing people to speak to each other and to share ideas in a way that was never previously possible. So whenever we speak about this, and it might seem a little theoretical, all we have to do is identify the ways in which technology can help us to share information, and how information that was only conceived in one context in one country could be applied in so many different countries in so many different contexts, and how easy it is to use technology to do that, to be able to identify with policymakers that this is something that they could get excited about. This could improve service delivery from their perspective. If their goal was improving access to education, that these kinds of open approaches could show higher access to learning materials, which could have a direct impact on whether more learners are getting educated. So we have to link, the ease in which this can be achieved to the outcomes, to get policymakers to have the red light about, this is what I need to achieve, and this is how a more open approach could help me to get there.